When you understand the deeper power of imagination, you stop waiting for someone else to give you the feeling of being loved. Instead, you begin cultivating that feeling within yourself. You stop searching the outside world for constant reassurance because you realize that your inner state shapes the way you experience everything around you. The moment you begin imagining yourself as deeply valued, genuinely appreciated, and naturally loved, something within you changes. Your identity begins to shift. You are no longer rehearsing rejection, uncertainty, or longing. You are practicing the emotional experience of being secure, wanted, and worthy of healthy love. This is the real power of living from the end. It is not about pretending that another person has feelings they have not expressed. It is about becoming familiar with the version of yourself who already feels complete. Instead of asking, "When will someone finally choose me?" you begin thinking, "I am someone who is worthy of being chosen, respected, and loved." That distinction changes everything. Many people approach relationships from a position of needing to prove themselves. They believe they must become more impressive, more perfect, or more pleasing before they can be loved. They chase attention, analyze every message, and search endlessly for signs that someone cares. But the more they chase reassurance, the more anxious they become. Their attention becomes centered on what is missing rather than what they want to experience. Living from the end invites you to reverse that pattern. You begin with the inner experience. You imagine what it would feel like to be in a relationship where affection is mutual, communication is clear, and you feel emotionally safe. You allow yourself to experience that state inwardly before demanding evidence from the outside. This does not mean forcing a particular person to behave a certain way. It means deciding what kind of relationship and emotional experience you are willing to identify with. Your imagination becomes a place where you rehearse confidence instead of fear, security instead of uncertainty, and connection instead of desperation. Think about how different you feel when you genuinely believe you are valued. You do not need to analyze every interaction. You do not panic when someone takes time to respond. You do not constantly wonder whether you are enough. You move with greater calm because your sense of worth is no longer hanging on every external signal. That is the state you want to cultivate. Imagine yourself receiving genuine affection from someone who respects you. Imagine conversations that feel natural and mutual. Imagine being able to express yourself without fear of rejection. Imagine feeling peaceful because you know that healthy love does not require you to chase it. Let that emotional experience become familiar. The goal is not to obsess over one particular person or attempt to control what they think and feel. The goal is to become the version of yourself who naturally expects mutual, respectful, and meaningful connection. When that inner assumption changes, your behavior changes with it. You communicate differently. You establish healthier boundaries. You become less reactive. You stop interpreting every silence as rejection. You stop treating uncertainty as proof that something is wrong with you. Instead of chasing someone for validation, you begin giving yourself the stability you were previously seeking from them. This is where imagination becomes powerful. You can close your eyes and imagine a simple scene that represents the relationship you desire. Perhaps you are having a peaceful conversation with someone who genuinely appreciates you. Perhaps you are receiving words of encouragement. Perhaps you are simply sitting beside someone and feeling completely comfortable, knowing that the connection is mutual. You do not need an elaborate fantasy. A simple emotional impression can be enough. Feel the calm. Feel the warmth. Feel the relief of no longer questioning whether you are worthy of love. Let that become the state you return to. The outer world may not immediately reflect your new mindset, and that is okay. Your responsibility is not to force circumstances into a particular shape. Your responsibility is to remain aligned with the qualities you want to experience. When old fears return, notice them without allowing them to become your identity. If your mind says, "They probably do not care about me," you can gently replace that thought with something healthier. "I am worthy of mutual care, and I do not need to chase anyone to prove it." If your mind says, I am going to be rejected. Remind yourself, one person's response does not determine my worth. If you catch yourself checking for constant reassurance, pause and return to the feeling of inner security. This is what it means to live from the end in a grounded way. You are not waiting for someone else to complete you. You are practicing completeness now. You are not denying reality. You are choosing the inner qualities that will guide the way you participate in reality. There is a profound difference between longing for love and becoming comfortable with being loved. Longing says, I need this to happen before I can feel okay. Inner security says, I can feel worthy, peaceful, and hopeful right now. One keeps you dependent on circumstances, the other gives you freedom. When you begin embodying this new identity, your actions naturally become more confident. You may speak more honestly. You may stop accepting behavior that leaves you constantly confused. You may become more willing to walk away from situations that do not offer mutual respect. You may also become more open to people and opportunities you previously overlooked because you were focused on one particular outcome. Your world can begin to feel different because you are participating in it differently. That is the practical power of imagination. It changes the person who enters the experience. And when you change the person entering the experience itself can change. So imagine yourself as cherished. But let cherished mean more than being desired by one specific person. Let it mean being respected, being appreciated, being heard, being valued, being treated with consistency. The outer experience is the result, not the starting point. Yet so many people spend their energy trying to rearrange the result while leaving the inner cause untouched. They send messages hoping for a different response. They change their behavior to gain someone's attention. They search for the perfect words, the perfect gesture, or the perfect strategy that might finally make another person choose them. But none of this addresses the deeper pattern within. When your inner world remains dominated by fear, insecurity, or the belief that you are not enough, changing external behavior alone rarely creates lasting peace. The deeper transformation begins within. It begins with the identity you repeatedly occupy and the expectations you carry into your relationships. When you begin living from the assumption that you are deeply valued and worthy of genuine affection, you step into an entirely different version of yourself. You are no longer the person desperately searching for reassurance. You become the person who trusts their own worth. You stop waiting for someone else's attention to tell you that you matter. You begin knowing that you matter regardless of what happens next. This shift can be subtle, but its effects can be profound. You communicate with greater calm. You stop overanalyzing every interaction. You become less reactive to silence and less dependent on constant reassurance. You begin responding instead of chasing. And because your behavior changes, your relationships can change too. People may notice that you carry yourself differently. Your conversations become more natural. Your boundaries become clearer. Your confidence becomes quieter and more genuine. The important change is not that you have somehow controlled another person. The important change is that you have changed the version of yourself that enters the relationship. That is where your real influence begins. You cannot force someone to feel something they do not feel, but you can decide what kind of relationship you are willing to participate in and what kind of person you will be within it. Your inner conversations matter because they become the emotional environment from which you act. If you repeatedly imagine yourself being rejected, forgotten, or unwanted, you may begin behaving as though those outcomes are already certain. You may withdraw, overthink, seek reassurance, or interpret ordinary events through fear. But if you repeatedly imagine yourself as secure, appreciated, respected, and capable of receiving healthy love, your responses begin to change. You become more grounded, you become more open, you become less desperate for proof. This is what it means to use imagination intentionally. Close your eyes and imagine a simple moment that represents the kind of connection you desire. Perhaps you hear someone telling you that they genuinely appreciate having you in their life. Perhaps you imagine a calm conversation where both people communicate honestly. Perhaps you simply imagine yourself feeling peaceful in a relationship, knowing that affection is mutual and freely expressed. Do not make the scene about controlling another person's mind. Make it about experiencing the emotional reality you want to live. Feel the warmth of being appreciated. Feel the relief of being understood. Feel the confidence that comes from knowing you do not have to earn your right to be loved. Allow that feeling to become familiar. Acting as if does not mean performing a role for someone else. It means practicing the identity you want to embody. Faking says, I must convince everyone that I am confident. Inner alignment says, I am learning to trust myself even when I feel uncertain. Faking says, I need this person to choose me. Inner security says, I want mutual love, but I will not abandon myself to obtain it. That difference changes everything. Your private thoughts become a training ground for the person you are becoming. In quiet moments, notice the stories you tell yourself. Do you imagine rejection before it happens? Do you assume someone is losing interest without evidence? Do you interpret every delay as a personal message? If so, gently interrupt the pattern. You do not have to fight your thoughts. Simply replace them with something more grounded. I am worthy of honest affection. I can handle uncertainty. I do not need to chase what is meant to be mutual. I trust myself to recognize healthy love. The more consistently you return to that state, the more natural it becomes. Doubt may still appear, and that does not mean you have failed. Old patterns do not disappear simply because you decided to think differently once. When doubt returns, notice it and come back to your chosen identity. Come back to calm. Come back to self-respect. Come back to the feeling of being worthy. Your goal is not to eliminate every uncertain thought. Your goal is to stop allowing every uncertain thought to control your behavior. Imagine yourself walking through the day as someone who feels deeply secure in their own value. You do not constantly check your phone for reassurance. You do not create stories about what another person might be thinking. You do not need to decode every word or gesture. You allow people to reveal themselves through their actions, while you remain grounded in who you are. You can still hope for love. You can still imagine a beautiful relationship. You can still believe that someone may develop deeper feelings for you. But you do not need to make your emotional stability depend on controlling the outcome. This is where imagination becomes empowering rather than exhausting. You are not using it to escape reality. You are using it to decide what qualities you want to cultivate within yourself. If you want to experience love, cultivate openness. If you want connection, cultivate communication. If you want respect, practice boundaries. If you want security, practice self-trust. Your inner world becomes meaningful when it influences the way you actually live. And when you become more secure within yourself, you may notice that you relate to others differently. You listen more carefully. You speak more honestly. You stop trying to impress people who are not reciprocating. You recognize mutual interest instead of trying to manufacture it. You become capable of walking toward connection without abandoning your own identity. That is a powerful form of transformation. The greatest shift is not becoming someone another person cannot resist. It is becoming someone who no longer needs to be irresistible to feel worthy. You stop asking, how can I make them choose me? And begin asking, is this connection healthy, mutual, and right for me? That question puts you back in your own life. It gives you discernment instead of desperation. It gives you choice instead of obsession. And it allows love to become something two people freely create together rather than something one person has to force into existence. So imagine yourself loved. Imagine yourself appreciated. Imagine yourself in a relationship where affection is clear, communication is honest, and both people willingly choose each other. Feel the peace of that experience now. Let it influence the way you carry yourself. Let it shape the standards you keep. Let it remind you that you are allowed to desire something beautiful without becoming consumed by the outcome. You do not have to chase love. You can become available to it. You can recognize it. You can respond to it. And you can walk away from anything that repeatedly makes you feel that you must earn your place. Your imagination can show you the emotional destination. Your choices determine how you move toward it. When you live from a place of self-respect, confidence, and genuine openness, your entire experience of relationships can begin to change. You become less focused on signs and more focused on substance, less concerned with guessing and more willing to communicate, less afraid of losing someone and more committed to not losing yourself. That is the deeper meaning of living from the end. You are not waiting for another person to give you permission to feel worthy. You are beginning from worthiness now. You are not pretending that someone loves you. You are becoming comfortable with the experience of being loved in ways that are mutual, healthy, and freely chosen. And when you carry that identity into the world, you no longer have to force the story. You allow reality, other people, and your own choices to reveal what is genuinely possible. The transformation begins within, but it becomes meaningful through the way you live. You become steady in the places where you once felt anxious. You become peaceful where uncertainty used to control you, and grounded where you once felt emotionally fragile. Something changes in the way you carry yourself, because the inner experience of feeling loved begins to transform your entire presence. You start moving with the quiet confidence of someone who no longer feels forgotten or overlooked. You stop reaching for your phone every few minutes, searching for a message or some tiny indication that they still care, because within your imagination, the connection already feels secure. You stop replaying old conversations, analyzing every word, and wondering what you should have said differently. Instead, you begin creating new inner conversations that reflect the relationship you want to experience. You stop living inside memories of what went wrong and begin focusing on the version of the relationship you would genuinely like to experience. The person you hold in your imagination becomes warmer, more attentive, more affectionate, and more emotionally available. And as you repeatedly return to this healthier inner picture, the old story gradually loses its emotional power. It becomes less important, like an old photograph that no longer determines what happens next. This is why inner work can be so meaningful. When you develop a stronger sense of being worthy of love, you no longer depend on another person's every action to determine how you feel about yourself. Their messages, silence, attention, or distance stop controlling your entire emotional state. You can observe their behavior without immediately turning it into a judgment about your own worth. The real shift is not about controlling another person. It is about gaining greater control over your own thoughts, reactions, expectations, and choices. And when those things change, the way you experience every relationship can change with them. At first, you may notice small differences in yourself. You might become less reactive. You may feel more comfortable allowing conversations to unfold naturally, instead of constantly wondering what every message means. You may become more open to connection without feeling desperate for reassurance. If the other person responds positively, you can appreciate it without becoming dependent on it. You do not need to turn every small interaction into proof that your desired future is guaranteed. Let their actions speak for themselves while you continue building your own emotional stability. The real evidence of your progress is the peace you begin experiencing inside yourself. The more comfortable you become with feeling valued, the more natural that feeling becomes. You may catch yourself smiling without needing a particular message to cause it. You may begin thinking about love from a place of possibility instead of fear. You may even notice that the way you speak about yourself starts changing. Instead of criticizing your own heart for caring, you become gentler with yourself. Instead of asking why you are not enough, you begin reminding yourself that you are worthy of healthy affection, respect, and genuine connection. You are no longer fighting internally for someone else's approval. You are learning how to rest in your own sense of worth. And that quietness can transform more than any dramatic gesture ever could. Your imagination can become a private place where you rehearse the emotional experience you want to cultivate. When you close your eyes, you can picture a relationship built around mutual affection, honesty, respect, and emotional safety. You can imagine hearing kind words, sharing meaningful conversations, laughing together, and feeling genuinely appreciated. But you do not need to imagine these things from a place of desperation. You can imagine them from calmness. You can let the experience remind you what healthy love should feel like, rather than using imagination as a way to escape reality. The difference is important. You are not trying to force another person's feelings. You are strengthening your own understanding of what you want to experience and how you want to show up within it. The more consistently you practice that state, the more familiar it becomes. And familiarity matters, because the way you repeatedly think about yourself can influence the choices you make, the boundaries you set, and the situations you are willing to accept. Many people underestimate the power of quiet consistency. They want immediate proof. They want one message, one dramatic confession, one sudden transformation that confirms everything they hoped for. But meaningful inner change rarely needs to be dramatic. It can happen through small repetitions. One day of confidence may not erase years of insecurity. One positive thought may not completely replace an old pattern. But every time you choose a healthier interpretation, every time you respond instead of reacting, and every time you remind yourself that you deserve mutual love, you strengthen a different identity. Slowly, the person you are becoming begins to feel more familiar than the person fear created. You are no longer simply imagining being loved by someone else. You are developing the identity of someone who believes they are worthy of love, someone who expects respect, someone who can receive affection without immediately questioning it, someone who does not need to chase another person to feel valuable. That transformation begins within you, and it can influence the way you interact with the world around you. As your self-concept becomes stronger, your behavior naturally begins to change. You communicate with greater calm. You stop over-explaining yourself. You become less likely to tolerate confusing behavior simply because you are afraid of losing someone. You recognize that genuine affection should involve mutual participation rather than endless pursuit from one side. You become more comfortable letting another person demonstrate what they actually want through their actions. And that creates a different kind of confidence. You are not trying to become irresistible so that someone cannot leave. You are becoming secure enough to know that you can handle whatever happens. That is a much deeper form of strength. You can desire someone without losing yourself in the desire. You can care deeply without abandoning your own boundaries. You can hope for connection while still accepting another person's freedom to choose. Your imagination becomes a tool for strengthening your inner world rather than a substitute for reality. You stop wondering whether they care because your sense of worth is no longer dependent on constant reassurance. You begin carrying an inner feeling of being valued, appreciated, and worthy of genuine affection. That feeling changes the way you move through life. Acting as if becomes less about pretending that another person feels something and more about choosing the emotional state you want to live from. Anxiety begins giving way to expectation. Doubt becomes easier to question. Longing slowly gives way to a deeper sense of fulfillment within yourself. The external circumstances may change quickly or gradually, but the most important transformation begins inside you. You are no longer sitting around waiting for another person to become different. You are becoming a version of yourself who knows what healthy love feels like, recognizes mutual affection, and no longer feels compelled to chase what is uncertain. As you continue returning to that inner state, ordinary situations begin to affect you differently. Things that once triggered insecurity may no longer have the same grip on your emotions. A delayed message does not automatically become a rejection. A quiet moment does not immediately become proof that something is wrong. A change in plans does not have to mean that you are losing someone. You respond differently because your interpretation has changed. Instead of reacting from panic, you pause. Instead of assuming the worst, you give yourself room to consider another possibility. This is where the deeper meaning of inner work begins to reveal itself. Your life does not become peaceful because every circumstance suddenly becomes perfect. Your life becomes more peaceful because you are no longer allowing every circumstance to determine who you are. You begin moving away from the old stories you repeatedly told yourself. The story that you are difficult to love. The story that people always leave. The story that you have to work endlessly to keep someone's attention. The story that one mistake can destroy everything. Those assumptions may have once felt like facts, but they were still stories. And stories can be rewritten. You can begin telling yourself something different. I am worthy of mutual love. I deserve honesty. I can be cared for without chasing. I can allow people to demonstrate their feelings through their actions. I can remain secure even when I do not know exactly what someone else is thinking. These beliefs do not give you control over another person's choices. They give you greater control over your own response to uncertainty. When you reach that place, you no longer need to chase the feeling. You carry it. You no longer need to prove your worth. You live from it. You no longer spend every moment asking whether love is coming. You begin creating a life that already contains love in many forms. And from that foundation, any relationship that enters your life has the opportunity to become something healthier, more honest, and more meaningful. You are not waiting for someone else to complete you. You are becoming more complete within yourself. You are not trying to force another person's heart. You are learning to understand your own. You are not abandoning your desire for love. You are simply refusing to let that desire become fear. And when you can hold love and self-respect at the same time, you discover a freedom that no external outcome can take away.